Tonight it's my pleasure to welcome a new author to the literary scene who joins us to introduce his debut novel for teens, Wildefire. Our guest has been writing since the age of 6 when he completed his first masterpiece, a picture book series about an adventurous worm. He's come a long way since then, and in the 2 decades that have followed, worked as a proofreader, a bookseller, and a college admissions counselor before finally deciding that his true calling is to be a volcano goddess biographer. Now, to share his new novel, please join me in welcoming Karsten Knight.
So I want you all to know the kind of world-reaching decisions that I had to make this event possible. Today I made one of the most difficult decisions I've made in my entire writing and publishing career. I stood in front of my closet for 45 minutes and tried to decide between the Hawaiian shirt with the white and the palm trees or the blue and the pineapples. And I hope I made the right decision. I also want you to know how important it is that I'm back at this Barnes & Noble, this particular one. This whole shopping plaza and I go way, way back, almost 20 years, actually more than 20 years, to when I was 4 years old. And my best friend Sean and I used to drive here, but we wouldn't actually drive here. Our moms would drive here. We were, with the Power Wheels on the highway. But we would go to the Toys R Us over there and pick out a new G.I. Joe every week, unless the flavor of the week was Ghostbusters or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But there was a new action figure every week. And then eventually, I graduated from action figures to books when I was about 24. And I started coming to this Barnes & Noble to shop for books when I was a kid, and then again when I was a teenager. And then most importantly, about 10 years ago, I was here, not at this podium, actually in the seats, when R.L. Stine was giving a reading. And for those of you who don't know me very well, R.L. Stine is basically one of the reasons that I got into the writing gig in the first place. I read his Goosebumps book all the time when I was 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's just weird to come full circle like this. And I also blame R.L. Stine for my horrible, horrible vision, because when I was a kid, I went through this 5-year phase where I would go up the stairs, and rather than sleeping in my mattress like a normal kid, I would take all of my bedspread, my quilts, my blankets, my pillows, I would drag them down the stairs, and I would build myself a nest in the living room floor. And I would turn off all the lights, and I would just read with the glow of the TV. And every time I get fitted for new contact lenses, I just want to bill him. Yeah, but it's a good thing. Now I have contacts in, so you're not blurry, which is a great thing because you're beautiful people. And this is the part where I flatter and charm you to get brownie points. Does it work? No. Try harder. So I want to start with a little story. Actually, I want to start with an apology, a promise, and a confession. My apology is that I had this whole choreographed dance routine planned for my entrance. It was going to be Guns N' Roses, transitioning into Spice Girls, and then Britney Spears. And then I found out this place isn't boombox friendly, so I had to scratch that. But needless to say, it was choreographed and practiced for several weeks. My promise is that I'm about to tell a story, and you may not understand where I'm going at first, or why it connects back to a Polynesian volcano goddess or a book about her. But I promise that eventually I'll connect to that random tangent to Wildefire. And my confession, which is where my story begins, is that I'm a horrible, horrible public speaker. And I can pinpoint the exact moment when I became afraid of public speaking. It was back in 8th grade. So I want you to travel back with me 12 years. It was a soggy, cold February when I was in 8th grade in Maynard, Massachusetts. I was not partying like it was 1999, even though it was. But I was doing really dorky things like it was 1999. Like I was doing homework. I was playing the xylophone in the band, which, as we all know, high school chicks love xylophonists. Always go for them over the high school quarterback or the homecoming king. So worked out tremendously in my favor. And one of the other really dorky things that I did was I participated in something called mock government. And mock government was basically these 500 high school delegates from all over Massachusetts. And we would dorkily convene once a month, and we would pretend we were in this legislature. Actually, I seen one of my former fellow delegates out in the audience. We would convene in this legislature and make up these fake bills and try to pass them. So again, 8th grade, February, we convene in this, all 500 of us in this auditorium, and I stupidly decide I'm going to be the brave one that gets up and reads my bill to the people. My bill was about encouraging people to use hybrid cars, because that was when they were first coming out. So if you picture me in 8th grade, I was 5'3". I was legitimately 87 pounds. I'm not under-exaggerating at all. I was roughly the size of a butterball turkey. I kind of looked like one too. And worst of all, my voice had not dropped yet, which is very important to the story. And you might see where I'm going. So I'm strutting down, it's like a strut waddle, down to the podium. I get up and I adjust the microphone, because at this point I was down there. And I start to read the first sentence of this law, and I'm doing great, and then I get to the word automobile, and my voice cracks for the very first time in front of 500 high school students. Automobile. So of course, because high school students are calm and collected people, they started hysterically laughing at me, all 500 of them. And my face is red, and I tried to brush it off. And after about 45 minutes, the laughter subsided. And I decided I was going to show that sentence who was boss. I'm not going to skip that sentence. I am going to jump right back and read that sentence again. Only when I got to the word automobile, my voice cracked a second time. So that is why I'm terrified of public speaking to this day. But this is the part where I connected back to Polynesian volcano gases. Are you watching this? Okay. High school is awkward for everybody. But when I wrote this book about a teenage Polynesian volcano goddess, I didn't want just the supernatural element. I wanted to showcase that even if you can wield the power of fire and split the earth open, high school's awkward for you too. It might not be the same awkward that it was for me. Your awkwardness might not cascade from high school into college, or college into your 20s, or 20s into book readings at Barnes & Nobles, but high school's still awkward. When you're a scrawny white boy from suburban Massachusetts, awkward is wearing big Hawaiian shirts and khakis and going through that phase. This is actually from high school, not lying. But when you are a Polynesian volcano goddess, awkward for you might be having a heavy makeout session with your boyfriend and getting literally turned on and accidentally burning your handprint into his chest. So I like to think that this is a big ball of fiery awkward, and that's one of the reasons that I wrote it. So I guess one of the reasons, or one of the questions you're always supposed to answer when you're here is the origin of the story. And I hate that question. I hate it so much. I've been doing interviews for the last 3 weeks, and inevitably, whether I'm answering an interview for a blog or a podcast or a newspaper, I always get the same question. Do you wear boxers and briefs? But after they ask that question, they move on and say, where did you get the idea for Wildefire? And the problem with that is I wish I had this really weird and cool story for where the idea came from. I wish that I took a trip to Hawaii for the weekend, and I decided to scale the side of Kilauea with a Sherpa, and when we got to the summit, it started erupting, and the lava flow chased us down the side of the mountain, and while the volcanic gases and trees were burning around us, I came up with this idea for a teenage volcano goddess story, but that is not what happened at all. I basically got fired. That's how I came up with the job. I got terminated, and not like the Arnold Schwarzenegger is a time-traveling assassin kind of terminated. I lost my job. And at the time, I thought it was because my boss was the Ice Witch from the Chronicles of Narnia. And that might still be the case, I don't know. But now that I've had time to reflect on it, I realized it was because I had the wrong job. I wrote for years and years and years when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, when I was in college. People always ask that question, have you always wanted to be a writer? And that question makes me laugh because I don't know how far back the always goes. Like, did I have like a cigar and a typewriter as I was coming out? I think my mom's probably psyched that didn't happen. No, I mean, I've been writing books since I was 9. I remember walking out of the Copper Kettle restaurant in downtown Maynard, and I saw something shift in the bushes, and then I came up with this idea for a shape-shifting demon who robs banks and a girl who caught him in the act, and he preys on her for the entire book. And I went home and started writing that chapter, and that was the moment when I became a writer. So I did it for 13 years. Started working as an admissions counselor, and I completely lost sight of that for about 2 years. Like, not only did I stop writing, but I forgot that it was such a big part of who I am. I was always that writer guy. And then shortly after I lost my job, I was out to lunch with a coworker, and the question of what now came up, and I brought up my writing, and she said, this is somebody who knew me very well for a couple of years. She said, I didn't know that you did any writing, and that was like the major turning point in my life, because I realized I'd given up something that I really loved to do something that was mediocre to me. So I basically did the same thing I did when I was 9 years old, and I had that story idea, and I came home and I started it. I left that lunch, I came home, and I started Wildefire, and that's where that came from. So the Volcano Goddess came into play later.